I've always believed the quietest moments carry the loudest truths. At my age, you learn to listen to silence as if it's a living thing. Breathing, shifting, warning you, comforting you. It was still dark outside, the kind of heavy darkness that presses on the windows, when a sharp, hurried knocking shattered the calm. 5 in the morning. You don't forget a knock at that hour, especially when it comes with the kind of authority my daughter-in-law, Crystal, liked to wear like perfume. Sharp, cold, and impossible to ignore. Move out. I own this place now. Those were her first words. Not, good morning. Not, sorry to wake you. Not even, we need to talk. Just a command. As if I were a stranger. As if the home where I'd raised my son and buried my grief was hers by simple declaration. But I didn't answer right away. I was sitting in my robe, an old, soft cotton one, edges frayed, lavender sachet tucked into its pocket, and I simply waited. Let her knock again. Let the echo travel through the hallway, around the photos she never stopped critiquing, past the kettle still warm from the tea I'd made an hour before. I didn't sleep well that night. Something in me had already been restless. Maybe because I knew what I'd done yesterday would change everything. Maybe because I felt the shift in the air, the way older women do, like a bird sensing a storm long before the first drop of rain. The second knock was louder. Linda, I know you're awake, she snapped. Open up. Of course she knew. She monitored everything, our electricity bill, our grocery purchases, even my Ring camera feed that I thought she hadn't hacked but had. She had a talent for slipping into places she didn't belong and acting like she owned them. But this time, she truly believed she owned the house. And that was what made the morning strange, almost surreal, because her confidence, her bravado, her certainty that she was now queen of this tiny kingdom. It all rested on a piece of paper she'd never actually seen. A piece of paper she thought existed. A piece of paper someone must have lied to her about. Or maybe she assumed. Crystal was good at assuming. The kettle gurgled behind me with a soft, SFX, kettle click, as if reminding me of my own rituals. My morning tea, my little sugar jar shaped like a robin, my kitchen window view where a cardinal visited the feeder nearly every day. Ordinary things. Quiet things. My things. Things I wasn't planning to leave behind. You see, I had already spent months studying every angle of my life. Every bill. Every account. Every legal document people gloss over when they trust too much. I had been a widow for only 2 years, and grief makes you soft in places you didn't know existed. It also makes you generous. Too generous. I let my son and his wife move in temporarily. I let them take over the guest room, then the office, then the garage. I let them store their things, buy new appliances using my credit card, just until their bonus arrives, and even add themselves to certain utilities because it makes sense since we're staying here. Every little step, small on its own, became a slow erosion of boundaries. And I, lonely, aching, wanting to feel useful again, let it happen. I filled the fridge with their favorite foods, gave them the 65-inch television they'd eyed, replaced my perfectly fine sofa with a sectional they wanted, and even updated the kitchen appliances. Mom, it's an investment, my son had said. Your house will be better for it, Crystal added, as if I needed stainless steel to feel whole. But yesterday, yes, yesterday was the turning point. I had gone downtown, wrapped in my navy shawl, carrying my blue folder, the one where I kept every receipt, every bill, every important paper I had guarded long before Crystal entered our lives. I sat with a lawyer, a patient older man who didn't speak in riddles or try to confuse me. And I signed something that ensured no one, no adult child, no spouse of a child, could ever force me out of my own home again. I didn't tell anyone. Not a soul. It wasn't secrecy. It was self-protection. So when Crystal stood outside my door at dawn, her knuckles slamming with such righteousness, claiming she now owned my home, I simply breathed. She thought she had beaten me to something. She thought she had gotten ahead of me. But she had no idea she was already too late. I finally stood, tightening my robe, slipping my feet into my warm slippers. I padded slowly to the door, letting the creaks of the floorboards speak for me. When I opened it just an inch, the cold air rushed in, brushing my face and making my eyes water. Crystal stood there in her puffy jacket, hair disheveled, face puffy with the kind of adrenaline only entitlement produces. She held a folded piece of paper, probably printed from the internet, probably not even legal. "Linda," she insisted, pushing the paper toward the crack. "My dad said the property transfer is confirmed. The house is in my name now. So you need to gather your things and leave within the week." I stared at her for a long moment. The moonlight behind her, the trembling in her voice, the satisfaction in her eyes, and the overwhelming urge I had to smile, but didn't. I simply said, "Crystal, go home. It's too early for foolishness." Then I closed the door. Softly, deliberately. Her shock was almost audible through the wood. She pounded again, furious now, but I walked away, letting her voice fade behind me as I picked up my cup of cooled chamomile tea, lifted it to my lips, and whispered to myself, "She really has no idea. Not yet. But she would. Because yesterday I signed something far more powerful than whatever fantasy paper she thought she had. And today was going to be the day everything unraveled. For her, not for me." Crystal didn't stop knocking until nearly 6. I didn't open the door again. I didn't need to. Instead, I let her beat her anger against the frame while I sat at the kitchen table, the warm hum of the refrigerator behind me, flipping through the same blue folder that had become my shield. Receipts. Contracts. Utility bills. Appliance registrations. Date-stamped photos of every major purchase. I had always been a saver. My mother taught me that, save everything, because paper outlives memory. She wasn't wrong. Paper holds truth that voices can rewrite and emotions can distort. Paper doesn't flinch under pressure. Crystal, on the other hand, lived in a world of assumptions and shortcuts. She believed that if she said something confidently enough, loudly enough, the world would reshape itself around her conviction. But paper doesn't care about volume. Paper cares about ink. And I had plenty of ink. The blue folder wasn't the only thing I had, of course. There was also my Ring camera, something I'd installed years ago for safety. Crystal thought she had the login. She didn't know I changed it after she used it once to check how late my grocery delivery arrived. People forget older women understand technology better than they assume. Quiet women always know more than they say. I opened my laptop, tapping the keys slowly, the way arthritis taught me to, soft and steady. The Ring feed loaded. Timestamps appeared. I rewound to the last week, scanning each clip, her late-night calls on the porch, her father's car pulling in, her hushed conversation into the phone saying, "It's basically mine anyway. She won't fight it." That line, "she won't fight it," would have broken me a year ago. But grief season is over. I am not the same woman I was when my husband died. Loss chisels you, makes you sharper. I saved the clips. One by one. Evidence. Next, I opened my email. My lawyer had sent the confirmation at 4:12 p.m. yesterday. All documents are finalized. You are fully protected. No transfers can be made without your explicit consent. I smiled at that. A small, quiet smile, the kind you allow yourself when you've taken your life back inch by inch. Outside, the sky had started to lighten, a pale gray stretching across the horizon. The cardinal landed on the feeder, pecking at seeds, feathers puffed against the cold. A small moment, but grounding. Nature doesn't care for human drama. It just continues. By 7, Crystal had stopped knocking. Instead, she sent texts. "You can't ignore this." My dad confirmed it. "We talked to someone who knows the process. You're being difficult for no reason." That last one made me chuckle softly. Older women are always difficult when they stop being convenient. My phone buzzed again. A voicemail this time. I didn't listen to it. Not yet. Instead, I opened the folder again and pulled out the older receipts, the ones from when I had first started buying things for them. It hurt a little to look at them, not because I regretted helping, but because I recognized the pattern now. A $230 grocery trip. We'll pay you back next week. A $1,999 refrigerator. It'll raise the property value. A $650 sectional sofa. Our friends are coming over, and your old couch is embarrassing. A 65-inch television. Everyone uses big screens now, Mom. A $499 gaming console. For stress reduction. Stress reduction for whom, exactly? I had kept each receipt because that's simply who I am. Crystal kept nothing. She believed permanence was guaranteed by entitlement. But I had proof, tangible, dated, undeniable proof, of every dollar I'd ever spent. And more importantly, I had the legal papers from yesterday. A fresh document, notarized, sealed, clean. And then came the message that changed everything. At 9:14 a.m., my son finally texted, "Mom, can we talk?" Crystal might have exaggerated something. Call me when you're calm. The irony wasn't lost on me. I wasn't the one banging on doors at dawn. Still, I didn't respond. I wasn't ready. Not until I had everything in place. Evidence isn't for revenge. Evidence is for clarity. And clarity was long overdue in this house. Around noon, I began methodically organizing the table. Blue folder on the left, printed emails on the right, a small notepad in the center. The notepad held a list of everything that belonged to me, purchased by me, or gifted by me under false pretenses. The sofa, the television, the refrigerator, the washer and dryer, the queen-size bed in the guest room, the patio furniture, even the fancy blender Crystal insisted on buying for smoothies, but which I ended up paying for. I made check marks. Slow. Precise. My home had become a storage container of other people's wants. And today, I was beginning the process of reclaiming my space, my dignity, my peace. The knock at 12:37 startled me. Not Crystal this time. My son. Voice soft. Cautious. "Mom, can we talk for a second?" I opened the door. He looked tired. Dark circles, unshaven, shoulders slumped. The boy I raised was buried under layers of stress and loyalty to a woman who wielded control like a blade. "Mom," he said, rubbing his neck, "Crystal said you're refusing to move because of some misunderstanding with ownership." "A misunderstanding?" I asked, arching a brow. "Well, she said her dad spoke to someone about transferring assets, and she concluded that meant I handed her the house?" He swallowed. "Maybe she jumped to conclusions. Maybe. I repeated gently. He sighed. "Look, Mom. She didn't mean to freak you out. She's just thinking long-term. Planning for my home," I clarified. "While I'm still alive." He winced. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse. I simply stepped aside so he could see the blue folder on the table. "Sit," I said. "I want to show you something." And for the next 20 minutes, I walked him through every receipt, every expense, every legal paper. Controlled. Factual. No drama. No shakiness. Just truth. When I finally slid the document from yesterday across the table, he stared at it as if it were a mirror he didn't want to look into. "Mom, you signed this yesterday?" "Yes." "And you didn't tell us?" "No." He exhaled. "Crystal's going to lose it." "She already did," I said quietly. "At 5 this morning." He covered his face. "Mom, I'm sorry." "I know," I told him. "But apologies don't fix patterns. Action does." And that was when I made a decision, not out loud yet, but inside myself. Tomorrow, the movers would come. The next morning brought a kind of clarity I hadn't felt in years. Dawn was pale and soft, the kind that doesn't rush you but gently lifts you into waking. I dressed slowly, choosing my warm gray sweater, comfortable trousers, and my sturdy shoes, the ones my husband bought me on our last vacation. Practical. Dependable. Quiet. Like me. The moving company I selected came highly recommended. Licensed. Insured. Known for professionalism. I confirmed the booking yesterday afternoon, right after my son left looking like a man caught between two worlds. At 8:03 a.m., the truck pulled into the driveway. At 8:05, 3 polite young men stepped out, clipboards in hand. "Morning, Ms. Hill," the lead mover said with a smile. "Ready when you are." "I am," I replied. And I meant it. Crystal's car wasn't in the driveway. She had left early, maybe to avoid seeing me, maybe because she assumed I would quietly disappear. Either way, her absence made everything easier. I opened the door wide. "Come in. I've marked everything that's mine." They nodded, stepping carefully inside. The men moved with rhythm, wrapping the sectional sofa with practiced motions, securing each cushion, lifting the heavy frame without strain. The refrigerator came next. I watched as they unplugged it, taped the doors shut, and maneuvered it out the front door with a dolly. Calm, deliberate choreography. After that came the television, carefully wrapped in thick padding. Then the washer and dryer. Then the patio set. Then the blender, the vacuum, the portable heater, the sewing machine. I checked each item off my list, one by one, like reclaiming breaths. At 9:12 a.m., Crystal's car tore into the driveway. She stormed inside, eyes wide, hair wild. "What is happening?" she demanded. The lead mover looked at me. I nodded. "These are my belongings," I said gently. "You can't take the sofa," she snapped. "We need that. You didn't pay for it." Well, we use it." I raised an eyebrow. "Use does not equal ownership." She sputtered. "This is ridiculous. You can't just empty the house." "Not the house," I corrected. "Only what belongs to me." She watched, shaking with disbelief, as the movers carried out the bed from the guest room. "Even the bed," she shrieked. "Especially the bed," I replied. "It was a gift. A gift I regretted." She stomped her foot like a child denied candy. "You can't just take everything." "I can," I said softly. "And I am. But..." I held up a hand. "Crystal, yesterday I signed a legal protection ensuring this house cannot be claimed, transferred, inherited, or controlled by anyone until I choose otherwise." Her face drained of color. You signed something?" "I did. And you didn't tell us?" "I didn't need to." She stepped forward, pointing a trembling finger at me. "You think you're punishing us? You think you're being noble? You're just being selfish." "Selfish," I repeated, tasting the word. The woman who woke me at 5 a.m. to tell me to vacate my own home. Calling me selfish. I almost laughed. Instead, I walked to the table and handed her a copy of the notarized paper. "This is the truth," I said. "Whatever lie or assumption you built your little power trip on wasn't real. This is." She scanned it with frantic eyes, lips moving as she read. "No," she whispered. No. She sank into a chair, my chair, hands shaking. I didn't gloat. I didn't smirk. I didn't soak in victory. I simply felt relief. True relief. I turned to the lead mover. "You may continue." By 11, everything was loaded. By 11:30, I had changed the utilities to my new address. By noon, the movers followed me across town to my new place, a small but charming senior living apartment with big windows and friendly neighbors who waved as we parked. The movers unloaded everything with the same respect they arrived with. They placed my sofa near the window, my bed in the cozy bedroom, my bookshelves along the wall, my precious kettle in the kitchen. By 2 o'clock my home, my real home, felt alive again. Not big, not fancy, but mine. Entirely mine. And quiet. Beautifully quiet. 2 days later, The police knocked on my door. Not with urgency, just a polite tap. Ms. Hill. We're here regarding a property dispute reported by Mrs. Crystal Hayes. I invited them in, offered them tea, and handed them the same blue folder. The officer flipped through the documents, nodding slowly, eyebrows lifting in appreciation. You're very organized, he said. I've lived long enough to know paperwork solves problems faster than arguments. He chuckled. You're not wrong. The other officer reviewed the notarized legal document from my lawyer. This is airtight, he said. She has no claim. And you were well within your rights to reclaim your belongings. I assumed as much, I replied. We'll file this as resolved, the first officer added. If she contacts you again in a harassing manner, call us. Thank you, I said softly. When they left, I exhaled, feeling the last tension drain from my shoulders. 3 days later, a letter arrived. Small Claims Court. Crystal had filed, trying to claim the sofa and television were joint assets. I attended the hearing calmly, wearing the same grey sweater, carrying my blue folder. Crystal arrived flustered, papers bent, arguments scattered. The judge listened patiently. Then I slid my folder forward. Receipts. Warranties. Credit card statements. The legal protection form. Crystal's shoulders slumped. The judge cleared his throat. Mrs. Hayes, nothing you've presented indicates ownership. Everything Ms. Hill has provided confirms the items belong to her. But she let us use them. Use, the judge interrupted gently, is not ownership. He turned to me. Ms. Hill, you are fully within your rights. Case dismissed. I nodded respectfully. No triumph. Just closure. Crystal avoided my eyes as we left the courtroom. My son stopped me in the hall. Mom, he whispered. I'm so sorry. I touched his cheek. You're always welcome to visit me. But I can't live in a place where I'm unwelcome. He nodded, tears forming. I'll come by soon. I'll help however I can. I know, I said. And I did. Now, my days are gentle. My apartment smells of cinnamon and lavender. The windows let in warm morning light. I've joined a book club, mostly widows, some divorced, all wise. We meet on Thursdays and eat too many cookies. On Mondays I take a painting class. My hands shake sometimes, but my instructor says trembling lines make paintings honest. In the evenings, I sit by the window, watching the courtyard fountain, listening to the soft splash of water, and I feel something I hadn't felt in years. Belonging. Not because of family obligation. Not because of shared walls or forced kindness. But because I chose this space. I built this peace. I reclaimed my dignity inch by inch. Sometimes I think back to that morning. The 5 a.m. knock, the entitled voice, the assumption that I would bow my head and shuffle out quietly. But older women do not disappear. We rise. Softly. Steadily. With documents, with truth, with boundaries. And silence. Not the silence of fear, but the silence of strength. If this story resonates with you, tell me where you're listening from. I'd love to know who's out there finding their own quiet courage. And that, my dear, is how everything changed.